I'm very pleased to have Christina Basey, my colleague here at Gleaners Food Bank, join me for today's discussion. Christina is part of an amazing team of two that leads all our volunteer efforts, and that is no small task. Can you share with the audience a bit about how the volunteer program works here, maybe your sense of how it's evolved, and then we'll get to future volunteer opportunities maybe in a follow-up.
Yeah, I've been here for about 8 years, so obviously the past couple of years are completely different than anything I've ever seen. We had about 12,000 volunteer visits last year, and 9,000 of those volunteers were individuals, so that's a lot different than what we saw pre-pandemic.
Right.
That's about half of the number that we were expecting, so definitely different last year.
You know, we've had some struggles versus our ideal scenario for volunteers. Unfortunately, there are people that sign up to volunteer and then they just don't come.
Yeah.
And obviously some of the work doesn't get done, but also on the positive side, you'll see people come as an individual volunteer and maybe they bring a group back the next time. So anything you might add in terms of what works or what helps and what doesn't maybe help so much in terms of volunteers here?
Yeah, that's one of the good things that came out of the pandemic last year is when we saw a lot more individual volunteers, they were coming back more often. So we're used to a lot of one and done volunteers where they volunteer once a year with their company and then we see them again next year for that next day of service. So it was really nice to see a lot of people as they worked from home. They came in individually, they brought in their family, they brought in their friends.
The mix of volunteers has changed over time, but also the ways that we have used volunteers has changed over time. Is there anything you might maybe expand on a little bit in terms of how we use volunteers, the mix of tasks and contributions, and maybe predict a little bit how we might need volunteers in additional or new ways in the future?
Because of the pandemic, we saw a lot more clients coming through our food pantry, so we more than doubled the number of volunteers that we use in our food pantry every day. And instead of having them help in the warehouse where they normally helped out before, they're in that pantry now. And we also created a lot of new positions. We had a home delivery program that we use volunteers for as well, and we're also starting a new one this week where we're going to use volunteers for a curbside pickup outside of our food pantry. So just creating those new positions where we can as a way to engage volunteers that want to be here.
Going into the pandemic, our on-site food pantry served our neighbors one way, and that was to walk in and shop in somewhat of a retail environment. And now as we begin to emerge, although pandemic recovery is multiple years, but as we're sort of emerging to a recovery stage in the pandemic, we're not offering one way for those neighbors to shop. There are 4 ways, and you named 3, right? Home delivery is one for those who truly can't get out and access, curbside, Gleaners to go, and then the in-store retail shopping, but we're actually keeping the drive-through as well, right? And there are volunteer opportunities for all 4 of those ways to shop, correct?
Yeah, we're constantly adding new volunteer opportunities just to keep up with everything that's going on in the warehouse and the pantry. The clean room is going to be an opportunity, like you said, for volunteers to repackage that bulk food. And then we also, we built that huge cooler back there, so we're using volunteers to build protein and dairy boxes back there as well.
Is there anything you might add about volunteer opportunities beyond this Gleaners building, whether it's our mobiles or other pantries or what you might want to share?
Yeah, so we're in 21 different counties, so volunteers can also volunteer in their own county at one of our pantry partners. They can help out at St. Vincent de Paul, or we have our Care Mobile program, which happens over the summer. So every June through August, we have volunteers help out at that Care Mobiles, as well as our senior mobile pantries every month as well.
You know, as our business gets more complicated, and we are one part supply chain company and one part, you know, charitable organization, so the task list is complicated. Anything you would add in terms of this additional skills required or subject matter expertise?
Yeah, we're open to volunteers who have special skills that they want to donate anytime. Landscaping is something that we do every year. We have a corporate group that's coming in next month that has an annual project that they do every year where they donate their specific skills and services.
And even in recent months, I've seen a couple of examples of specific companies with days of service. Anything you would add in terms of corporate offsite, day of service, team volunteering, and what you've heard from maybe some of those companies about the experience.
Yeah, I know it's a pretty popular experience every year. People want to sign up to Gleaners, and we try to offer different options as well. So maybe they won't be landscaping or working back in the warehouse. We'll have them write thank you letters to donors or make thank you calls as well. So we have something for everyone.
And I know that you're constantly hearing and sharing stories from volunteers. Maybe as a way of closing out this segment, if there are one or two of those stories that you think tell our volunteer story that you want to share.
Just last week I had a volunteer reach out. They'd be a new volunteer. They actually ended up in our pantry line last year. So now that they're back on their feet, they're excited that they can also volunteer with us to give back. And I would say during the pandemic when we were closed and we had the National Guard on site, a lot of our regular volunteers just missed volunteering with us. And when they came back, I realized how much they needed us as much as we need them.
Right. Actually, if I recall, we actually had some regular volunteers leave in tears on the day we told them we had to shut down the volunteer program. And I understand it's a compelling mission that you and I have the privilege to be part of. And keep gathering those stories, keep telling those stories, because they're motivating reminders for the rest of us too. So assuming that we convinced everybody listening to this conversation that they want to volunteer at Gleaners, what instructions do you have for them?
Yeah, we have everything online, so just go to gleaners.org, click on that volunteer tab, and you can actually see a calendar of all of our opportunities that are open for the next 3 months. Anyone interested can also reach out to me directly. I'm happy to answer any questions or give a tour if you want to see the volunteers in action.
Christina, you're a great colleague, and I'm really pleased with how your team does with the volunteers, and frankly, that's the entry experience for so many people to the Gleaners mission, so thank you for that.
Thank you. We're happy to do it.